Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing another video on the Gran Turismo Legends series. Now we're not doing a race car or rally car like we've been doing for the first three videos. We're going to be doing a sports car in this one. That is going to be the Dodge Viper. So yet another iconic car from the Gran Turismo series. And this car's a classic in the Gran Turismo series. It's also one of the best value for money supercars. I'll get to that a bit later. Now this car's been in every single Gran Turismo game since Gran Turismo 1 and is still in Gran Turismo 7 to this day. And it's one of the first cars that come to mind when people think about the Gran Turismo series. So in my opinion, the second and third generations of this car are the most iconic. But I went more in depth at the different generations in my other video, which you can see on screen, ranking V10 cars, if you're interested. The first generation was okay, but it was nothing really special. The second and third generations where the car got good, and the fourth and fifth generations once again were okay, but just not really as good as the second and third generations were. So let's talk about a little bit about the history of this car. So like I just said, there's been a total of 5 generations of this car, and Dodge has recently announced it's going to be ending production for the Viper. So it makes sense that we'll cover this car now. So we're going to be focusing on the second generation specifically in this video. I said the second and third generations are the best. The reason why we're not doing the third generation is because it hasn't actually been in all the Gran Turismo games, not in the first 4 anyway, because it wasn't actually made. Whereas I believe the first generation was made in 1997, I could be wrong. So the exact year the first game came out, and it was in GT2 for a fact. I know that GT3, GT4, GT5, GT6, I think GT Sports, and obviously Gran Turismo 7, or GT7. So the car is a fan favourite amongst Gran Turismo players, much like many of the cars in this series. But let's have a little look why. So the main reason, as I mentioned earlier, is the value for money that this car offers. Now back in the older games, particularly in Gran Turismo 2 and 3, there was no other car which really offered the same horsepower for as little money. So, everyone happened to have a Dodge Viper laying around. Now that, coupled with the fact that it could be tuned, resulting in serious performance, meant everybody had one. I remember people would race in £1 million supercars and would get destroyed by this £80,000 Dodge Viper. It really was one of the best value for money supercars. You've got to remember, in the earlier games there was no Lamborghini, there was no Ferrari, there was no Porsche, no Bugatti, no McLaren, and really this was kind of the fastest car in the game. I mean, what springs to mind, maybe the Jaguar XJ220, but that was a lot more expensive and a lot more difficult to get. Maybe the Honda NSX, but had a lot less power. And maybe the TVR Speed 12, once again that was very difficult to get. So yeah, I'm probably having to think, and I just can't see anything that was that cheap offering that much horsepower. Barely anything had more than 400 horsepower, let alone was that cheap. So yeah, the car was around £80,000, £90,000 in the original game, just slightly more now. I believe it's about 110,000 in the used dealership. You can buy it from new in the Gran Turismo 7 Dodge dealership for I think 130,000, something around that. So you'll probably be wondering how come it was in the first Gran Turismo game in 1997, yet it can be purchased from the dealership which only sells cars that are made after the year 2000. So I do have to confess, this not exactly the same, just like the Castrol Supra in the last video. Although it's all the second generation, there's been slightly different variants of the generation. There was the 1997 version, 1998, the 1999 ACR, that was an iconic one, and the 2002 version we have now. I'm including them all as the second generation Viper, if you will. They have small horsepower differences, maybe a few paint differences, but overall, same car, same engine. So, very similar, so just bear with me. So, let's talk about the design. As you can see on the screen, it's a very unique car in terms of design. So, I think this looks a lot like a classic American race car. So, doing a bit of research for this video, the CAF in cafe in Gran Turismo 7, the bit where it gives you some information about the car, and on the Gran Turismo wiki, says this car looks and is a modern day interpretation of the Shelby Cobra. I think it more resembles the Ford GT and the Shelby Daytona, especially the Daytona. The long front end with the big bubble, if you will, at the back. Of course, with the racing stripes finished in the blue with the white stripes. The Ford GT for a classic American supercar. I can't really see why they're saying it looks like the AC Cobra or Shelby Cobra. You know, if in the comments you know why, then let me know. But I think it is a copy of the Daytona instead. So it's available in 3 colours, the Dodge Viper that is. A yellow, which is also available with a black stripe, you can get it with or without these stripes. The red, which comes in a white stripe, which you can see on screen, it's a very iconic combination. Or you can have a grey, which comes in the white stripes. Back in the earlier games, I think it may have been the 1999 version, but you could get it in blue, with or without stripes, and you could get blue stripes for the grey version. I do remember that, because that's where the colour scheme I got my first Viper in. So because the colour scheme was quite limited and it was also very unique with the stripes, it meant that they became really iconic. My favourite colour version, as I mentioned earlier, was the red with the white stripes, as you can see on the Dodge Viper on screen. But let me know what you think about it in the comments. So let's talk about the performance of this car. Obviously this car is quite old now, at 22 years old. I know I mentioned earlier about it having no competition in the older games, but you know, it still holds up fairly well today. You've got to remember now we have Bugattis, Chirons, loads of Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Maseratis, Teslas, Porsche, Roof, you know, so many different car manufacturers. But it's, you know, still fairly okay today. It's not groundbreaking, but it is still a good car. It has around 448 brake horsepower from standard, and it has a terrible drag coefficient, but somehow its performance is still really good. 0 to 60 in around 4 seconds, and can do nearly 200 miles an hour. When you think about it, the Lamborghini Huracan, which is about nearly 20 years newer, which has over 150 more horsepower and is more aerodynamic and is twice as expensive, is roughly the same speed. I find that quite amazing, really. The mid-range of this car is really good, as it really pulls, the torque coming through there. The brakes aren't very good, as you would expect. It's quite heavy. The V10 engine really kind of weighs it down a bit. But this is fixable in the tuning shop, of course. I found a little bit of weight reduction with some better brakes and a better clutch. Makes this car really good. So the good thing is about this new weekly events is encouraging people to do a lot more of the menus rather than just doing the one individual race to get it over and done with, if you will. But yeah, this car can be, or is actually quite useful, to be fair, in a lot of different events. So in Gran Turismo 7, it has 558 pp. So I mean, there are 600 pp American things, a little bit of tuning, maybe American 700 pp championship. You can go naturally aspirated championships. You can go the World Touring Car Championships. You know, there's quite a lot of events this car can actually go in. And being a road car, it is a lot more useful in events. Usually they say, you know, no race cars allowed, so you can't use it. But in fact, this is still a road car. Makes it a lot more usable. There isn't really much comparison to this in the game in terms of early 2000s American muscle, if you will. I think there's a Corvette from a bit later on, which kind of does overshadow this car a bit, I will be honest, but it's still a really good car. I'd recommend you lot buy it. It's really good. And yeah, I think that just about be it for this video. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.